The NHL Draft, one of the many wonders of the hockey world. It is where dreams are made of. That is, unless you get drafted by the Arizona Coyotes, because they're absolutely terrible and they do not deserve an NHL team. Other than that, it is a pretty happy place. So today, I'm going to be putting everybody back on the team that drafted them. That means like guys like John Tavares will be back on the Islanders. Patrick Kane is back on Chicago. And Erik Karlsson is back on the Ottawa Senators. Now, before you go in the comments and absolutely flame my roster, I did this all by hand. I went through every single team and pretty much put every player back on the team that has drafted them. Now, obviously, there's going to be a couple mistakes here and there, and I didn't really focus on players that were not above 80 overall, so I pretty much stopped there. Because if I'm being honest, I don't really care about the shitty players. So Anaheim is going to pick up Rickard Rakell at an 85 overall. They also drafted William Karlsson, who's an 84. They drafted him in 2011, 53rd overall in the second round. They're also going to have Shea Theodore at an 88 and Brendan Montour an 87. They picked up both of them in the draft, Brendan Montour being 2014 and Shea Theodore 2013. They're also going to have Hampus Lindholm at an 87 overall. Freddie Anderson is going to start for them at an 88 overall, and John Gibson is the backup at an 86. They picked up Freddie Anderson in 2012, 87th overall. Arizona is going to have guys like Max Domi at an 84 and Blake Wheeler, who was an 85. They drafted him way back in 2004, 5th overall. They're also going to have Dylan Strome at an 84. They drafted him in 2015, 3rd overall. Defensively, they're going to pick up Oliver Ekman-Larsson at an 82. They took him 6th overall in 2009. Boston is going to keep their first line with Pasta, Bergeron, and Marchand. They're going to pick up Phil Kessel at an 82 overall. He was drafted 5th overall in 2006. They are going to get back Tyler Seguin, who's an 85 overall. They took him 2nd overall. Defensively, they're going to have Matt Grzelcyk, Charlie McAvoy, and they're going to pick up Dougie Hamilton, who's an 89 overall. They drafted him 9th overall in 2011, and their starting goalie is going to be Jeremy Swayman at an 85 overall. Buffalo is going to have Brandon Hagel, Jack Eichel, Dylan Cousins, Sam Reinhart, Victor Olofsson, and their starting goalie is going to be Linus Ullmark at a 90 overall. They would take him 163rd in 2012. Carolina is going to get Jeff Skinner back at an 86. Elias Lindholm, who's an 89. He was drafted 5th overall in 2013. They're going to get Brian Dumoulin back at an 83 overall, and Justin Falk, who's an 85. He was drafted 37th overall in 2010. And since Antti Ranta was not drafted by anybody, I just left him on the Carolina Hurricanes. I would do that with most undrafted players, besides a few that I felt deserved to be on one team. Columbus is going to get Dubois back at an 85 overall. They took him 3rd in 2016. Jacob Voracek will also join the team at an 84 overall. Ryan Johansson is also going to join the team at an 83 overall. He was drafted 4th overall in 2010. Defensively, they're going to get Cody Ceci at an 82. He was drafted 15th overall in 2012. For goalies, obviously, Sergei Bobrovsky is going to start at an 86. He was drafted, actually, he was undrafted. Technically, I could have left him on Florida, but I did decide to put him back on Columbus. Calgary is going to get Matthew Tkachuk back at a 93 overall. Also, Sean Monahan and Johnny Gaudreau, who's an 89. But I mean, the biggest one of them all is they're going to get Adam Fox at a 92 overall. He was drafted in the 3rd round in 2016, and he basically told Calgary, I'm not playing for anybody but the Rangers. So they would end up trading him. That is a big mistake by Calgary. I mean, he turns out to be the 2nd best defenseman in the entire NHL. Chicago is going to get guys like Artemi Panarin back, who's a 93 overall. Technically, he is undrafted, but I thought it was fitting that he's on Chicago with his good buddy Patrick Kane, who's a 90 overall, Alex DeBrincat, who's an 88, and Teuvo Teravainen, who's an 84. Colorado is going to pick up Ryan O'Reilly at an 87, and Matt Duchene, who's also an 87. Matt Duchene went 3rd overall in 2009. They're also going to get Tyson Barrie back, who's an 85 overall, and they're going to keep Alexander Georgiev at an 87 overall. Technically, he's undrafted, so I kept him there. Dallas is going to get Riley Smith at an 84. He was drafted in the 3rd round in 2009. Also, defensively, they're going to get John Klingberg back, who's an 85 overall. He was drafted in 2010. And they will keep Jake Ottinger, who's an 89 overall, and their backup is actually Jack Campbell at an 83. He was drafted in 2010, 11th overall by Dallas. The Red Wings are going to get Gustav Nyquist back at an 82 overall, and Thomas Tatar, who's an 82 as well. For defensemen, they're going to get Philip Hronek at an 87 overall. He was drafted in 2016. The Oilers will get Jordan Eberle back at an 84 overall. Obviously, Taylor Hall, who was also drafted by the Oilers, 1st overall in 2010. Defensively, they're going to get Jeff Petrie back, Eric Gustafsson, and Joseph Marino. John Marino. God damn, that TikTok Doc was just stuck in my head, I guess. And obviously their starting goalie is going to be Stuart Skinner at an 84 overall. Florida is going to get Jonathan Huberdeau back at an 88. Also Zach Hyman, who's an 87. He was actually drafted in 2010. And their starting goalie is going to be Jacob Markstrom at an 86. He was drafted in the second round in 2008. The Los Angeles Kings are going to pick up Braden Shen at an 86 overall. Minnesota is going to get Alex Tuch at an 87 overall. He was drafted in 2014. All I remember from his time in Minnesota is that shootout goal at development camp. Defensively, they will get Brent Burns at an 87 overall. He was drafted in 2003 in the first round. And their starting goalie is going to be Darcy Kemper at an 86 overall. He was drafted in 2009. Montreal is going to get their former captain, Max Pacioretty, at an 86. They will also get Ryan McDonough, who was drafted way back in 2007 by Montreal. The New Jersey Devils aren't going to get much, but they will get Adam Henrique at an 82 overall. He was drafted in 2008, 82nd overall. Their starting goalie is going to be Mackenzie Blackwood at an 83. He was drafted in 2015 in the second round. The Nashville Predators are going to pick up Kevin Fiala at an 87. He was drafted in 2014. Defensively, they're going to have Roman Josi, Seth Jones, who was drafted way back in 2013, 4th overall. Matthias Ekholm, Ryan Ellis, Samuel Girard. They have a pretty good decor overall. And their starting goalie is going to be UC Saros, who was drafted in the 4th round in 2013. The New York Islanders are going to pick up their former captain, John Tavares, at an 87 overall. Obviously, 1st overall in 2009. Defensively, they're going to pick up Devon Taves at an 88 overall. He was drafted in the 4th round. The Rangers are going to get JT Miller at an 87. He was drafted in 2011, 15th overall. And Anthony Duclair, who's an 85. He was drafted 2013 in the 3rd round. Ottawa will actually improve quite a bit as they get Mika Zibanejad at an 89 overall. He was drafted 6th overall in 2011. They're also going to pick up Mark Stone at an 89 and Mike Hoffman at an 81, while also getting back their former captain Erik Karlsson at a 90 overall. He was drafted 15th overall. Their starting goalie is going to be Robin Leonard at an 86. He was drafted in the 2nd round in 2009. Philadelphia is going to get James Van Riemsdyk at an 82, and their former captain Claude Giroux at an 87 overall. He was drafted 22nd overall. Pittsburgh won't get much back, but they will get Jordan Staal at an 81 overall. He was drafted 2nd. Defensively, they're going to get Jake Muzzin at an 84. He was drafted 2007 in the 5th round. Their starting goalie is going to be Tristan Jarry at an 87, and their backup will be none other than Marc-Andre Fleury at an 86 overall. The last goalie to go 1st overall in an NHL draft. San Jose is going to get their former captain, Joe Pavelski, at an 87 overall. He was drafted in the 7th round. Obviously, they'll get back Timo Meier at an 87. Josh Norris at an 86. He was drafted in 2017. St. Louis will get Vladimir Tarasenko, who's an 86 overall, drafted in 2010. And they will also get Tage Thompson, who's a 91 overall. He was drafted in 2016 in the 1st round. Defensively, they're going to get their former captain, Alex Pietrangelo, at an 89. The Tampa Bay Lightning are going to get Andre Palat at an 83. Not much, honestly. Defensively, Tony DeAngelo, who's an 85. They would actually draft him. The Toronto Maple Leafs are going to pick up Nazem Kadri at an 86 overall. He was drafted 7th overall. Carter Verhaeghe, who's an 86. He was drafted in 2013 in the 3rd round. Also, Connor Brown, who's an 84. He's now an Oiler. And their starting goalie is going to be James Reimer at an 83. He was drafted in the 4th round in 2006. Vancouver will get their former captain, Bo Horvat, at an 88 overall. He was drafted 9th overall in 2013. The Winnipeg Jets are going to get Patrick Laine back at an 87. And Evander Kane, who's an 85 overall. Technically, he was drafted by the Thrashers, but they are basically the Winnipeg Jets, so I just decided to put him back on Winnipeg. They will also get Jacob Trouba at an 85 overall. Finally, the Washington Capitals, they are going to get Philip Forsberg at an 89. Yes, they drafted him way back in 2012. They're also going to get Andre Burakovsky back at an 85 overall. Chandler Stevenson at an 86. He was drafted in the 3rd round. And their starting goalie is going to be Ilya Samsonov at an 86 overall. He was drafted in 2015. Now, for Vegas and Seattle, they took a big hit for the simulation. They got stripped of a lot of players. I mean, I left some there, but I did take the most important players from their teams and put them back on the team that drafted them. And after that long intro, we are finally ready to simulate. Here we go. At the end of year number 1, somehow Anaheim is actually going to finish 1st in the entire NHL, going 48, 24, and 10, followed by Chicago, Pittsburgh, Vancouver, Toronto, New Jersey, Nashville, Arizona, and Florida were the 3 worst teams in the NHL. Nashville being the worst by far, going 26, 49, and 7, having only 59 points. Connor McDavid is going to have the most points in the NHL with 104, followed by Johnny Hockey's 101. And then there was a big gap to Kaprizov's 94. Mark Scheifele had 94. Leon Draisaitl 92. Mikko Rantanen 91. Jacob Voracek had 90. Kucherov 89. Matthews 87. Matthews was also a minus 17. That is not good at all, buddy. For the most goals in the NHL, Matthews had the most at 50, followed by Kuch's 48. Nazem Kadri had 47. Matthew Tkachuk 45. Svechnikov 45. Kaprizov 43. Kyle Connor 43. Ovi 41. For defensemen, Adam Fox is going to have the most points at 82, followed by Quinn Hughes 77. Drew Doughty 72. Shea Theodore had 67. Brent Burns 66. Freddie Anderson is going to have the most wins by any goaltender with 42. He would also have 7 shutouts. Would that be the most in the NHL? No, Stuart Skinner had 9 shutouts. And this is our year 1 playoff matchup. Some of them actually already started. New Jersey's up on Carolina. It's tied in the Pittsburgh series. Montreal's up 1-0 over Boston, and it's tied in the Toronto series. Minnesota's up 1-0, tied in the Chicago series. Edmonton is down 1-0, and the Anaheim Ducks are actually up 2-0 over the LA Kings. And in year number 1, the Stanley Cup Finals are set as we have the Calgary Flames versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. Who is going to take home the Stanley Cup this season? I'm very surprised that Calgary got here, but Tampa Bay, not so much. And just like that, in year number 1, the Calgary Flames are going to go on to win the Stanley Cup in Game 7 over the Tampa Bay Lightning. They damn near almost blew a 3-1 lead in the Stanley Cup Final, but they rebounded for Game 7. I have no idea how Calgary made it this far, but they have made it this far, and they are year 1 Stanley Cup champions. Matthew Tkachuk is your Conn Smythe winner. It said he had 4 points, but that is definitely wrong. And there it is, Lord Stanley, baby, the Stanley Cup, what we all play for. And here comes the assistant captain, Anderson, coming to lift the Stanley Cup for the Calgary Flames as they are Stanley Cup champions in year number 1. I think his name is Rasmus Anderson, if I'm not mistaken. And he's going to pass it off to your boy, Matthew Tkachuk, who actually left the Flames last offseason. And now it seems like everybody's leaving Calgary, or they want out at least. So, I mean, it's good to see Calgary win a Stanley Cup before everybody leaves, right? Because, I mean, Calgary definitely has some dark years ahead of them with everybody wanting out. So, at the end of year number 2, the Boston Bruins are going to finish first in the NHL, going 54-22-6, followed by the Minnesota Wild, the Colorado Avalanche, the Chicago Blackhawks, Columbus, Toronto, San Jose was up there. Pittsburgh is also up here. At the bottom of the league, we have the Arizona Coyotes, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Red Wings. Arizona being the worst, going 32-43-7. I mean, realistically, they should just be relocated to Houston at this point. Elias Pettersson had the most points in the NHL with 111, followed by Connor McDavid's 109, Sidney Crosby 106, Leon Draisaitl 103, Mitch Marner and Panarin both had 99, Patrick Kane 96, Matthews 96, Fox 96. For goals, Robertson's gonna have the most at 52, followed by Malkin and Ovi's 47, Leon Draisaitl had 46, McKinnon 45, DeBrincat 45, Jack Eichel also at 45. For defensemen, Adam Fox only 13 goals but 83 assists for 96 points, followed by Drew Doughty, who had 84, a bounce back season by him. Brent Burns had 78, Sergachev 72, Dougie Hamilton would have 70. For goalies, Jeremy Swayman is going to have the most wins in the NHL with 44, and for shutouts, Tristan Jarry's actually going to have the most with 6. And this is our year 2 playoff matchups. We have Toronto and Tampa in round number 1. That is going to be good. And in the Stanley Cup Final, we have the Anaheim Ducks versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay getting here yet again. Florida beat Boston in 7 games yet again. And who's going to win the Stanley Cup? Are the Lightning going to get their revenge, or the Ducks actually going to steal it? And the Anaheim Ducks are going to go on to win the Stanley Cup as they beat Tampa Bay in 5 games in the Stanley Cup Final. Yet again, a surprising team is going to take home the Stanley Cup. I mean, come on now. I don't think anybody expected Anaheim to actually win the Stanley Cup in this simulation, let alone in year number 2. And here comes Troy Terry to come collect the Stanley Cup for the Anaheim Ducks. As for the first time since like 2006 or 7, whenever it was when Brian Getzlaf and Corey Perry won the Stanley Cup, Anaheim Ducks are yet again Stanley Cup champions. Freddie Anderson is actually going to get his Stanley Cup that he's obviously been missing from his trophy case, and that does not look like Freddie Anderson. I mean, that dude isn't even a ginger. Like, what is going on here, EA Sports? Shea Theodore is also going to get a Stanley Cup. I mean, he got one in Vegas, but he's going to get one here in Anaheim as well. Nikita Kucherov is going to have the most points in the playoffs with 28. He's very familiar with that. He also had 16 goals. Trevor Zegras would have 10 goals and 28 points. Braden Point had 5 goals but 25 points. Brendan Montour, 25. Frank Vetrano, 24. Connor McDavid is going to take home the Ted Lindsay and the Hart Trophy, while Jason Robertson is going to take home the Maurice Richard and Elias Pettersson will take home the Art Ross. Brent Burns is actually going to win the Norris. Brendan Montour is your Conn Smythe winner. Alexander Georgiev is going to win the Vezina, and Alexander Barkov would take home the Selke. At the end of year number 3, the Boston Bruins are going to finish first in the entire NHL, going 52, 23, and 7, followed by the Minnesota Wild, the Anaheim Ducks, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Vancouver Canucks. Arizona was yet again the worst team in the NHL, going 29, 43, and 10. Vegas was also bad, and the LA Kings were bad. Kirill Kaprizov and Mark Scheifele are going to have the most points in the NHL with 99. Shout out Wayne Gretzky. Followed by Kyle Connors, 97. Nathan MacKinnon, 97. Marner had 97 as well. Matthews, 94. Panarin, 94. DeBrincat had 94. And Patrick Kane had 92, who's at minus 17. For goals, Matthews is yet again going to have the most at 52, followed by Jack Eichel's 49. Alex Ovechkin at 46. Kyle Connor, 46. Kaprizov, 45. McDavid, 44. Pasta had 43. Patrick Kane had 43. And Jeff Skinner had 41. Adam Fox is going to have the most points by a defenseman yet again, this time with 89, followed by Shea Theodore, 71. John Carlson at 68. Quinn Hughes, 66. Dougie Hamilton at 64. Roman Josi, 62. Charlie McAvoy is going to have the most goals by a defenseman with 20. Jeremy Swayman is yet again going to have the most wins with 45 by any goaltender. And Freddie Anderson is going to have the most shutouts at 7. And this is what our year 3 playoff matchups look like. We have Toronto and Tampa in round number 1 yet again. And in the Stanley Cup final, we have the Colorado Avalanche versus the Boston Bruins. Who will take home the Stanley Cup in year number 3? Will Matt Duchene finally get a Stanley Cup? Ayo, Boston swept Toronto in round number 2. That is hilarious. Leafs fans are definitely pissed about that. And the Boston Bruins are going to blow a 3-1 lead in the Stanley Cup final as Colorado is going to take home that Stanley Cup. Boston, I have no idea what happened, dude. How do you do this again? This time it was even worse, blowing a 3-1 lead in the Stanley Cup finals other than the first round. That is just so embarrassing. You were one game away, one win away from the Stanley Cup and you blow it? Like, I absolutely have no idea how Boston does it again and choke even harder than they did the last time. And here comes Captain Gabriel Landeskog coming to lift the Stanley Cup for the second time in his career as a captain and as a member of the Colorado Avalanche as they're yet again Stanley Cup champions. He's going to pass it off to the GOAT, Nathan MacKinnon, Nate Dogg, baby, lifting the Stanley Cup for the second time in his career as well. Obviously the greatest player of all time. He's going to give it off to the big dog, Mikko Rantanen, baby. Believe it or not, my grandma actually had a dog named Mikko once, so Mikko Rantanen has a special place in my heart. I mean, not really. Gabriel Landeskog would have the most points in the playoffs with 30. He also had 10 goals. Ryan O'Reilly had 28. David Pastrnak, 26. Nathan MacKinnon, 25. Duchene had 24. Kirill Kaprizov is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while Matthews is going to take home the Maurice Richard. Adam Fox would take home the Norris. Freddie Anderson is going to win the Vezina, and Sean Couturier is going to take home the Selke. At the end of year 4, the defending Stanley Cup champs, Colorado, is going to finish first in the NHL, going 56, 20, and 6, followed by the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Washington Capitals, the LA Kings, Edmonton Oilers, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Arizona Coyotes are yet again the worst team in the NHL, finishing with 67 points, going 29, 44, and 9. That is a terrible record, followed by the Seattle Kraken and the Montreal Canadiens. Artemi Panarin is actually going to lead the entire NHL in points with 101. He only had 20 goals, but 81 assists, followed by Patrick Kane, who had 100. He also had 59 goals. Nikita Kucherov had 99, Crosby 99, Malkin 96, McDavid 96, Adam Fox also had 96, Matthews 94, Braden Point 91. For goals, Patty Kane is going to have the most at 59, followed by Jack Eichel, who would have 50, Nikita Kucherov at 49, Pasta 47, Ovi 45, Claude Giroux would have 43, Matthews 42, Malkin 42, and Tage Thompson 41. Adam Fox is yet again going to have the most points by a defenseman with 96, followed by Quinn Hughes at 77, Carlson had 72, Shea Theodore had 71, Dougie Hamilton 71, Chris Letang 69. Alexander Georgiev is going to have the most wins by a goalie with 45, and for most shutouts in the NHL, it would be Ilya Sorokin, who had 7. And this is what our year 4 playoff matchups look like. We have the Battle of Alberta in round number 1. That is going to be good. And in the Stanley Cup final, we have the Vancouver Canucks versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. Will Crosby get his 4th Stanley Cup of his career, or is Elias Pettersson, Bo Horvat, Quinn Hughes all going to get their first Stanley Cup? And the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to go on to win the Stanley Cup Cup as they beat the Vancouver Canucks in 5 games in the Stanley Cup final. Crosby, Malkin, and Letang all get their 4th ring of their career as they were just the better team. Marc-Andre Fleury also is going to get his 4th ring of his career. Jordan Staal is actually the Conn Smythe winner somehow. I have no idea how, but it says he is. And here comes Captain Sid the Kid, Sidney Crosby, coming to lift the Stanley Cup for the 4th time in his career. 4 times as a Pittsburgh Penguin, and they are yet again Stanley Cup champions for the first time since 2017, which is actually not that long ago if we're thinking about it. He's going to give it off to his boy Evgeny Malkin, who has been with Crosby basically his entire career. Malkin is yet again a Stanley Cup champion, and of course he's going to give it off to Chris Letang. He had 2 strokes with the Pittsburgh Penguins, but somehow still is going to finish as a 4-time Stanley Cup champion. Shout out to him. That is one tough son of a Chris Letang, an absolute legend. For the playoffs, Crosby would have the most points with 34. He would also have 11 goals, followed by Evgeny Malkin's 32. Jake Gensel had 30. Elias Pettersson had 29. Pasta would have 24. Jared McCann, 24. Quinn Hughes, 23. Brock Besser, 22. Adam Fox would actually take home the Ted Lindsay, the Hart Trophy, and the Norris Trophy, while Patrick Kane is going to take home the Maurice Richard, and Artemi Panarin will take home the Art Ross. Georgiev would take home the Vezina, and Alexander Barkov with another Selke Trophy. At the end of year number 5, Boston is yet again going to finish first in the entire NHL, going 53, 20, and 9, followed by the Washington Capitals, the New York Islanders, the Detroit Red Wings, the Minnesota Wild. Carolina was up there. God damn, man, the poor Arizona Coyotes are yet again the worst team in the entire NHL, going 25, 48, and 9. I mean, at this point, you gotta feel sad for them. Just relocate to Houston at this point. Connor McDavid is going to lead the NHL in points with 108, followed by Leon Draisaitl's 99. Artemi Panarin had 92. Adam Fox, 92. Man, Adam Fox, in every simulation I do, is always up there. Not just for defensemen, but for everybody in the league. This dude is an absolute points machine. He only had 8 goals, but 84 assists. Like, dude is just the ultimate offensive defenseman. Mikko Rantanen would have 90. Elias Pettersson, 90. Cale Makar had 89. Patrick Kane, 88. David Pastrnak, 87. For goals, Ovi had the most at 49. Actually, he was tied with Patrick Kane. They both had 49. Followed by Mikko Rantanen's 48. Jack Eichel had 45. Connor McDavid had 45. Matthews, 43. Stammer had 42. Marchand, 41. Pasta, 40. We obviously know Adam Fox had the most points by a defenseman, followed by Cale Makar, who had 89. Brent Burns had 85. Mo Seider, 71. Quinn Hughes, 69. Rasmus Dahlin, 65. Victor Hedman. Jeremy Swayman would have the most wins by any goaltender in the NHL with 42. And for the most shutouts, it would be none other than Andrei Vasilevsky, who had 6 shutouts. And this is our year 5 playoff matchups. And in the Stanley Cup final, we have the Colorado Avalanche versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. Will Colorado win their 2nd Stanley Cup of the simulation, or will Toronto finally break the curse and finally win a Stanley Cup for the first time since 1967? And the Toronto Maple Leafs have finally broken the curse, winning their first Stanley Cup since 1967 as they beat the Colorado Avalanche in 5 games in the Stanley Cup final. It was not even close, if I'm being honest. They were just the better team than Colorado. Austin Matthews is going to take home the Conn Smythe, and there it is, Mitch Marner of the Toronto Maple Leafs lifting the Stanley Cup for the very first time in his career, and the franchise's first Stanley Cup in over 50 seasons. Somehow they named Mitch Marner their next captain. He's going to hand it off to Pablo Escobar. Austin Matthews with that 80s porn stash. He's finally going to get the Stanley Cup. Maybe the media will get off his back then. I have no idea. He must have showed up in the playoffs if he won the Conn Smythe. So finally, he's going to give it off to Morgan Rielly, the guy who's basically been there the longest. He's finally going to lift the Stanley Cup for the first time in his career. He definitely deserves it. He's been there for a while, and he's been very solid for a very long time. For the playoffs, Austin Matthews had the most points with 36. He would also have 17 goals, followed by Mitch Marner's 34. Nathan MacKinnon had 30. Carter Verhaeghe, 28. William Nylander had 28. Claude Giroux had 25. Landeskog had 25. Connor McDavid is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while Patrick Kane is going to take home the Maurice Richard. Cale Makar is going to take home the Norris. Austin Matthews obviously took home the Conn Smythe. Jeremy Swayman is going to win the Vezina, and Alexander Barkov is going to take home yet again another Selke Trophy. And that is going to do it for this video, boys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, don't be silly, wrap your willy.